My name is Cheryl Thornton, and I'm a member of SEIU1021, and I was on the 2019 bargaining team, and we just concluded our bargaining for SEIU 1021 miscellaneous contract.
And how many workers does that include?
So we were representing 16,000 from various agencies, from hospitals to airports to courts, you name it. We were representing all public workers for the city and county of San Francisco.
And in the city and county of San Francisco, there have been a number of issues. One is that the attack on African American, retaliation, discrimination, workplace bullying, there were hearings around that. And also the fact that city revenue is increasing dramatically as a result of massive construction booms, and the city workers have fallen behind. They've taken cost shifting on their health care benefits and their pension. So the city workers have fallen behind. So what happened in these negotiations? And now there's another issue of what happened recently. But talk about what you saw in the negotiations and the issues you had with them.
This was my first time again on a bargaining team. And what I saw during our bargaining season is that it was more like a, I don't want to use the word setup, but it was more as if that they knew the outcome at the beginning, a dog and pony show. So basically, we were told to put together our proposals, our equity proposals, our goodwill, good faith proposals, and so forth. And so we put a lot of effort getting these proposals together, getting them on the table. But one by one, our union bargained them away. And so a lot of people who needed equal pay for equal work, they didn't get it. There were a lot of, so I feel like the process for the contract, it feels rigged in a way, and it's rigged against the worker.
And there have been city worker strikes, there have been county worker strikes, the teachers have been on strike. There was no effort to prepare for a strike. I mean, what happened? I mean, as far as saying to the city, look, we're entitled to a major raise, we're entitled to real changes, that didn't happen.
Early on, SEIU 1021 talked about strike. They had a strike. They even had a strike school. At the same time, in April of this year, I was processing for a new position. So when I went and processed for this new position, they made me sign once again a no strike clause. That we could not, as a city worker, I was not allowed to strike. I gave that paper to SEIU 1021 because we had been talking about going on strike. But then further into the negotiations, they explained that we couldn't go on strike because we thought we could, but they told us we could not go on strike. Even though that they said that the state court rule, it's illegal to take our right away to strike. The city and county public workers have the right to strike. So with that being said, they didn't want to take it. I guess they couldn't take it back to state court to say that the city's ordinance was out of compliance, and the PER board, who ruled on it initially, saying that public workers had the right to strike, the city challenged that ruling, and so now it's back in PER court again, stuck. And we're waiting for another ruling. But the thing is, it was bargaining time and it was stuck. So that was the reason they said we couldn't strike.
But even if you didn't go on strike, you could still take a strike authorization vote. That didn't mean you were going to go on.
We didn't have any strike authorization vote. It was the leadership of SEIU 1021. Some of the leadership started saying we're not prepared to go on strike. We can't go on strike. We're going to just have to take this deal because Local 21 caved and took the deal, and if you guys don't take this deal, then the city can send it to the arbitrator and you could get 8.5% versus the 11%. So it felt like a lot of fear-mongering. A lot of the bargaining team members were very dissatisfied with the process. We didn't feel like it was a genuine process, nor was it transparent. And during bargaining, it was very interesting because the union put on a case and they hired an economist. And this economist, he was very well informed about the city. And we learned that the city has a AAA credit standing, the highest credit standing that any city could have. The city has over $1 billion of assets just waiting. So, for many years, we took concessions. SEIU 1021 members took concessions. We got no pay raises. We took furloughs. And so the thing is, SEIU 1021, we're the largest union in the city and county of San Francisco. We represent more employees than any other union. We're the backbone of the workforce. And we're the lowest paid workers. And it's very expensive to live here in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, in the whole region. I mean, we have many of our members have been displaced, forced out of the city, and they're coming back, they're commuting back to the city. The toll's gone up, and it's going to continue to go up the next 2 years to $9. A toll, when you're going to the toll.
The city could pay for that, cover the tolls, cost of.
Well, and some workers are doing 2 bridges, so they're getting poorer and poorer. Gas is going up, but yet all we could get is an 11% increase over 3 years. And it really, when you really think about it, the way that they split up the percentages, it was not a good deal because overall we get 11%. But here's how it works: July 1, we get 3%. January of 2020, we get 1%. And then the next year, it's 3.5%. So we get, I don't remember how the breakdown is, but what I wanted to say is when you split up the percentages through half the year like this, if somebody's going to retire in 3 years, they're not going to benefit from the whole 11% that we earned. 11% increase for the COLA, because the retirement system goes by your 3 highest years of work. So you have to work 12 months. And so in 3 years, you wouldn't have worked those 36 months at that 11% increase. So it's like you're going to be working another 4 or 5 years to get that increase.
And I understand the contract says that the union will work with the EPIC program and also Lean and collaborate in implementing these programs. Isn't Lean a program to get rid of workers?
Absolutely. Lean and EPIC. So EPIC is the actual technology, the program that they use, where a lot of the processes have been automated. So then you don't need as many workers. And then you come behind it and you create additional workflows through the Lean process, which can eliminate even more workers. And
why would the union say that they want to support this program, since it's getting rid of their own members?
Well, they said that they didn't have a right to stop the city from upgrading their technology. But here's the thing. The thing is that the mayor's office has called for no new requisitions. And with this whole Lean project going on, many of the workers were in a long classification, so they had to be upgraded. But because the department claimed that the mayor's office said no new requisitions, then we all became temporary exempt employees until for the next, we could go as long as the next 3 years as temporary exempt. Basically, we don't have the full rights of just cause. Even though we can resort back to our previous position, there's no previous position to go to because the job has been eliminated through EPIC and Lean. So that's the first thing. The second thing is today I'm on the mayor's task force against to erase racism in the city and county of San Francisco. And one of the things that was told to us by a director, I believe Linda Simon, that the departments the departments like the health department, they've been part of the budget process with the mayor. And even though the mayor said no new requisitions, if they, according to them, if they had made their presentation saying that we need these new requisitions, oftentimes the mayor will say, okay, there's justification, give them those requisitions. They say oftentimes the departments are the ones who say that the mayor's office is doing this, but in fact, they're the ones who are advocating for these temporary recs. And what's interesting here is that with this whole Epic business, the installation of this new technology, and us becoming temporary workers, and with the automation between Lean and Epic, we really believe that a lot of these temporary workers are not going to transition back to permanent work. They're going to be eliminated from the workforce because they're going to say we don't need all these people, and that this was a dirty trick done by DPH, to take the most least senior workers in the workforce, many women of color at the lowest, at the bottom of the socioeconomic chain in the city and county of San Francisco. So it's not right, And meanwhile, what I wanted to say about the city and our increases is the city has a AAA credit rating. It has $1 billion in assets. We were asking for 12%, 4% this year, 4% next year, and the following year. That we felt that was a reasonable request, and we could not achieve that. So right now we are trying to ratify the contract, but the members have just learned that the Board of Supervisors got 12% increase for 1 year with a 3% CPI every year, which basically says that they're going to get a 24% increase and over the life of their contract.
And they're already making $125,000 a year.
Right, they're making $125,000 a year, but they said they're the lowest paid politicians, the Board of Supervisors. So that's why they got this 12% increase, because it looked like when you look at the workforce, they were paid less. But if you look at a lot of our jobs, we're paid less, but the city said, no, we are not. They came up with these. Sometimes when they did their presentation during the bargaining, they had people like Steve Ponder coming up with these wild calculations. He was using these, it didn't make sense how he portrayed his narrative of the city, how we're paid, and the merit and classification. It just didn't make sense. He says that basically we were overpaid, but we're not, and that's why they couldn't really justify raising our raises, our pay to 12% versus 11%.
So a lot of the city workers now are pretty unhappy about what's happened.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are, now that they found out, they are pretty unhappy with this package because they feel like the city has money. They're in a better position than they've ever been. They have a AAA credit rating, and the way that you get that AAA credit is through your fiscal responsibility. So, it's time for the city to give back to the workers who run this city. It's really time. We took concessions for many years, and so we were behind, and so it's time for us to catch up. But we should be able to enjoy some of the fruits of our labor for all these years. Come on, we need it just like anybody else.
Another issue is that hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent on outsourcing and privatization. Did that come up? I mean, should there be a ban? Did the union demand that there be a ban on outsourcing and privatization, consultants and other jobs? Because it seems like private business districts, they've got workers making slave wages on these business districts, people doing, even the bathrooms. I mean, they're not being paid decent living wages. I mean, it's like cheap labor on and getting rid of public workers who are doing public work.
Yes, the bargaining team raised the outsourcing issue, that a lot of our jobs were being converted to temporary exempt or just being outsourced to many nonprofits. We raised this issue. We wanted to write a proposal. We actually did write a proposal, but somehow in the end, our union didn't stand up.
So they didn't bother pushing it.
No, they did not push it. In the beginning, in the room, they told us they were going to push it. They were like, it sounded like we had support, but in the end, the proposal disappeared. I believe it disappeared. And I don't think there's too much of anything about outsourcing in our new contract that's coming up.
I think they're in bed with management.
Oh, for sure. I think for instance, that I hear that SEIU1021 currently is organizing Health Right 360 to come in and be unionized under SEIU 1021. And a lot of the people in Health Right 360, they're doing the same work as us. This is city work. Their patients use the county hospital, and this is our work. And traditionally, this is the population that we would take care of, the safety net population. But now that you have Health Right 360 coming up, they're actually taking some of the patients away from us, and they're paying their workers $15, $16 an hour to do the exact same work that we're doing. And we just feel like that's a threat to public work.
And has there been a political education campaign about all the work that's being outsourced, the consultants? Hundreds of millions of dollars of public money is now going to consultants in San Francisco or workers, nonprofits.
Oh, absolutely not. There's no education. Steve, I was actually, when I ran for office for SEIU 1021, and so
What position did you run?
I ran for vice president of representation. I was not elected. But what I want to say is that during my campaign, I met a lot of people, so I got connected with the housing authority. And the housing authority, the workers, basically their jobs, it's been outsourced. HUD, I don't understand exactly, I don't have all the
They
legal.
privatized it.
But they privatized HUD. And so those workers there have now lost their jobs. Some of them have 20 years, 15 years in, and they've lost their job. But here's the thing. I went to a meeting with SEIU 1021, some of the HUD members, and some of the director of housing, the mayor's office of housing in San Francisco. And one of the things is that we found out is in 2008, SEIU 1021 signed the RAD for public housing now to become private. They signed off with the city. So in 2008, they knew they were going to be giving those people's jobs away, and yet they did nothing. And what we learned in bargaining is that the city and county of San Francisco goes to Sacramento, lobbies for money from the state and the feds. They get this money and they come back and they help create nonprofit agencies like Health Right 360. And then they pay the average worker $15 to $16 an hour. But the person who runs the organization is paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so so we really feel that the city and our union are in bed with each other to outsource our work. And the city is getting, we feel that the union may be getting some kind of kickback for this.
You're setting up a two-tier system for workers who do the same work, but some workers are paid less than public workers, and therefore there's an incentive to get rid of all public work.
Yes, absolutely. If you could pay somebody $15 an hour versus $45 an hour plus medical benefits to do the same and retirement, if you're running a business, what option are you gonna choose? You're gonna want the $15 person. Now, prime example of that is Curry Senior Center. It's up in the Tenderloin district, and it's part nonprofit and part city. And so they have two front desk workers there doing the exact same job, but one was hired through the funding source of the nonprofit, and the other one's funding source was the city and county, doing identical work. And one is making $15 an hour, and the other one is making $45 an hour.
Is this fair?
It's absolutely unfair. What happened to the law? Equal pay for equal work. what's going on with
But that wasn't even an issue in the election, was it? I mean, in the negotiations. Was that an issue in the negotiations?
Well, we brought it up. We brought it up about equal pay for equal work, about the outsourcing and how it's undermining city workers, and it just fell on deaf ears. It's like the union's not concerned about it, and the reason they're not concerned about it is because we feel that somehow they have their hand in the pot to get some of this money. And so, because what would make you want to cannibalize your own membership? The only thing I can think of is money from another source.
And you ran for representation, vice president of representation. If you can't even represent the members you have, why are you out organizing other people or doing other projects?
Because this is a corporate union. It's just all about taking in as much money as it can. It's much, dues.
It's a business.
It's a business, and unfortunately, like when the workers call upon to have the union represent them, we're getting such. If you're lucky enough to get some representation, it's very weak.
And they had an 800 number or something to call?
Yeah, they have an 800 membership service number. Me, I have a direct line to my union rep, but as nice as she is and as sweet as she is, it's just apparent that she's very limited to what she can do to assist me as a worker who's going through retaliation and discrimination. It just feels that management has some kind of hand over on our union. It's as if they're their boss. And there's certain things I believe that they're told that they shouldn't do, and the union, concedes.
It's corporate unionism, isn't that? Basically, you accept the framework. We tell you can't go on strike, even though you have a legal right to go on strike, and we just accept that.
Right, exactly. And so that's what's happening. And, so the bargaining process was very revealing to me as far as, even though it wasn't meant to be transparent, by sitting in that room, you could see what was happening and that it was a dog and pony show. There was a fix in early on. They told us, that we started out asking for 18%, and they told us we were probably only going to be getting 11%, and we should accept that deal,
They told you that from the beginning.
From the beginning. Before our PEC team went to talk to the mayor and Sean Ellsberg about our wages. The fix was in. And like I said earlier in this interview, we tried to say, no, we're not going to accept it. We're not going to vote for that. But then we were threatened with, if you don't accept this, then if you don't accept this deal, then you could get, the arbitrator could rule in the city's favor to give you 8.5%. So everybody at that point said, you know what, we can't strike. We don't have a voice. We don't want to risk getting only 8.5%. So people.
They beat down the negotiating.
Right, they beat them down, and a lot of people right now that they're out trying to ratify the contract, people are upset because they feel as if they were hoodwinked. That's how they feel. How could the city cry that they didn't have enough money, but yet they gave the Board of Supervisors a 12% increase for 1 year and then a 3% CPI? So basically,
That wasn't even on the table for the union, a CPI for its members.
No.
So they didn't even put that on the table.
No, we talked about the CPI and that it was around 4%, and that's what they were basing our wages on, is 4%. And so I guess that's how we were able to come up with the 11% increase. But we just feel like that 11%, it was fixed from the beginning because that's all we kept hearing about.
So what should the members do? It sounds like it's kind of a locked-in situation, and they have a grip with the city management about negotiations. It sounds like a very difficult position for city workers.
Well, hopefully, if this contract is not ratified, then we'll have to go back to the table. And although we can't go on strike, we certainly can do.
Why not?
Well, they're saying that they won't back us. We don't.
So the union won't back you.
Right. They will not back.
In other words, the union doesn't want you to go on strike.
The union will not back a strike at this point. They said we're not ready for a strike. We don't have enough of the membership that would want to go on strike, and that we would not be able to. We need to build up for a strike. We're not prepared.
I thought they were building up during the contract negotiations with these rallies, and they are.
Disrupt inequality, right? Exactly. Yeah. Well, they said the contracts. The point of the rallies during the contracts was to let the city know that we were going to disrupt inequality.
So they were kind of PR stunts.
Right. Exactly. They were absolute PR stunts, because in the end, what good did it do? They made us concede to the 11%. So what good did they do? I mean, even Local 21 got a little better deal than we did, because they got the same economic package of 11%, but then they were given one more floating holiday, actually to make them equivalent to us. But that you have to work in order to get the fifth floating holiday. You have to work 20 years in SEIU 1021, but in Local 21, you get it within 1 year. So some people said, well, why didn't we get at least an extra floating holiday to be compared to Local 21? And it was told to us that Local 21, they pay a lot higher wages. I mean, they even though they make a lot more money than us, their membership dues are higher, number one. Their healthcare cost is higher. So in the end, we got a good contract. That's why we shouldn't be complaining.
So that's what the present leadership that was just elected said. This is a good contract. You should all accept it. You're making gains.
Yes. And that this is the best that they could do. They didn't even really, the interesting thing, Steve, you brought up strike. They didn't really even query their membership to see the 16,000 workers. What did they feel? Would they want to go on a strike? Would they want to do maybe not a strike?
Work action. The transit workers have a work action.
Right. Have work actions at multiple sites at lunchtime for many days. We could have done something like that, but we did nothing. We were just basically forced to take that deal to TA that 11%. And yeah, another thing is that this year with the bargaining team, there were a lot of new people like me, and honestly, we were not educated about the process. So we didn't know really what was happening, and we just had to figure it out as we went along. And the problem with that is they could, when you don't know and you're ignorant to a process, it's easy to fearmonger on people.
And manipulate.
Right. And so we believe that, that was another tactic. They preferred to have all these new people who were unseasoned on that bargaining team, so that we could, so that they could take advantage of us.
And there was a threat made against you to go public about what was going on. Somebody, the vice president said you better not talk about what's happening here.
Oh, yeah. So there was a member the PCAs who...
PCA is what?
Patient care assistants. They were de-skilled a few years back. They were called, CNAs. And one day the city came up with this process. They transferred them all. They said, we're going to put you in this job description of PCAs. And it basically was like $15 less an hour or something.
So it was a pay cut of the work.
A pay cut and a de-skilling. But identical job descriptions. And so one of the things that the SEIU 1021 have been fighting for the PCAs to be restored back to what they made when they were CNAs. So, yeah. Wait, I lost my train of thought.
They said you can't go out, you can't talk about it.
Oh, yeah. So there was a member who, when they were having the negotiations with management, they posted it on Facebook. They did a live feed. So the union found out about it, and they had to tell management that a live feed went out on Facebook. And so we were told by the current vice president of SEIU 1021 San Francisco that we could not discuss negotiations with anybody. We couldn't show what was going on. We definitely couldn't be Facebooking and with management and letting people see the live process. And that if we did anything like that, even if we were in the union hall, we could still be disciplined. By management. And I was like dumbfounded by that, because I'm like, I thought the union hall was our safe haven. So how could they say that we could be disciplined? And she was talking to us, our vice president, more as if she was management, more as if she was with the city.
So they really didn't want the members to know what was going on.
No, they did not want they didn't educate the members about the process at all. I'm getting calls from people, what should we do, what's going on? They're here, they're telling us we need to vote for this contract. We don't even understand the process. They just put out this little slick ad saying what we got and it's a good contract and vote yes. But that there's no questions and answers. There's no membership meetings like they were having, before bargaining. Why aren't we having membership meetings to educate the members about the contract?
That's too dangerous, maybe.
I mean, I don't understand why we're not. We have a union hall down there. We're paying all this money for that hall. Wouldn't you think that would be a time to bring in new members and try to engage them? Come down here about your contract? No, they're not doing any of that. What does that tell you? They don't want you educated. They want us staying in the dark, and they say, oh, well, we got 11%, and, that's the best we've gotten in a long time, so we're just going to take it. Because they don't know. They don't understand the ins and outs of this deal. They don't understand that even though you make 11% over 3 years, if I retire in 36 months, I'm not going to reap the benefits totally of that 11% in 36 months, because you have to work. It's your 3 highest years of work. So that's a way of kind of bargaining you down. It's a smoke and mirrors kind of thing.